Althea grew up in a tiny coastal village in the Philippines where life was simple but heavy with struggle. Each morning before the sun rose, she quietly slipped out of bed to help her mother arrange small baskets of dried fish they would later carry to the market. Their wooden home, built from mismatched planks and patched with tin sheets, creaked with every breeze from the ocean. Even though money was always short and days were always long, there was something magical about the nights. After dinner, when the village lights dimmed and only the moon glowed above the sea, Althea climbed the small ladder to the rooftop. There, she sang softly into the night air, letting her voice rise above the sound of the waves. Singing was her escape, her comfort, her secret hope. People in the village often paused to listen, believing her voice carried something heavenly. But no matter how beautifully she sang, Althea felt her dreams were too big for someone like her. One day, while she was helping carry baskets through the crowded market, a foreign tourist heard her humming. He stopped, stunned by the richness of her tone, and asked her to sing again. Shy but polite, she softly sang a few lines of her favorite song. The tourist, amazed, recorded it on his phone. She didn't think much of it until a week later when villagers ran to her home saying she was on the internet. Confused, she borrowed an old cell phone and saw the video online. It had already gathered thousands of views. People from different countries commented in awe, asking who she was, calling her voice golden, even angelic. Within days, the video exploded across social media in the USA. News pages featured her, fan edits appeared, and one night, as she and her mother sat in their dimly lit home, an email arrived from a producer of America's Got Talent inviting her to audition in Los Angeles. Her mother gasped, unable to speak. They had never dreamed of something so big. They had no passports, hardly any money, and no idea how to afford such a journey. But their small village refused to let this chance slip away. Neighbors held fundraisers, fishermen donated their day's catch to sell, children dropped coins into jars. Althea watched all of this with tears in her eyes. She finally felt that maybe, just maybe, her voice was meant for something greater. When she stepped onto a plane for the first time, clutching her mother's hand, her heart raced with fear and hope. Arriving in Los Angeles was like stepping into a different world. The airport seemed endless, filled with lights, giant screens, and crowds rushing in every direction. Althea held onto her small bag, the only luggage she owned, while trying not to look overwhelmed. A shuttle took her to the AGT venue, and when she entered backstage, she saw dozens of performers practicing, laughing, and warming up confidently. She felt completely out of place in her simple dress, stitched carefully by her mother. Her hands shook as she waited, listening to the echo of applause each time another contestant finished. A kind staff member noticed her nervousness and told her gently, "Just be yourself. That's why you're here." When her turn finally came, Althea stepped onto the massive stage, blinded by the bright studio lights. The audience murmured softly, surprised by her shy posture and humble appearance. Simon Cowell leaned forward and asked her name, where she came from, and why she was there. Her voice trembled as she said, "I come from a small village, I'm here to sing for my mom." Some audience members smiled warmly but still seemed unsure of what to expect. Then the music began. The moment she opened her mouth, the entire atmosphere shifted. Her voice was powerful yet pure, filled with raw emotion. The audience fell silent, stunned. Simon slowly leaned back, his expression changing from curiosity to astonishment. By the time she reached the final high note, people were on their feet, cheering louder than she had ever heard in her life. And then, without hesitation, Simon stood up and slammed the golden buzzer. Gold confetti burst into the air as Althea fell to her knees, crying, unable to believe what was happening. Her journey had just begun. Althea's life changed overnight after the golden buzzer moment. Within hours, clips of her performance flooded social media across the United States. News anchors replayed the moment Simon hit the button, fan pages dedicated entire posts to her voice, and millions of people searched her name online. She became the Filipino Golden Girl, a title she never asked for but was deeply touched by. Yet behind the cameras, the spotlight, and the sudden fame, she carried a quiet heaviness. She was grateful, but she was also scared. She knew the world expected even more from her now. Each morning, she woke up in her small hotel room, scrolling through comments. Some praised her, but others warned her not to mess up in the next round. Those words echoed in her mind whenever she tried to practice. During rehearsals for the quarter-finals, she stood in the vast empty theater, staring at the bright stage that seemed much bigger than before. She tried to hit the powerful note she usually mastered effortlessly, but it cracked, painfully off-key. Embarrassed, she froze. Her vocal coach approached gently, reminding her that pressure could strain even the most gifted voices. She nodded, but the fear inside her only grew stronger. Backstage, she found a quiet hallway and sat alone, hugging her knees and fighting tears. She missed her mom, her simple village, the peaceful nights on the rooftop. For a moment, she wondered if she was meant for this world of bright lights and huge expectations. On the night of the live quarterfinal show, she felt her heart pounding as the host called her name. Stepping onto the stage, she inhaled slowly, trying to calm the shaking in her hands. The audience's cheers faded into the background as she looked at the judges, Simon smiling softly, Heidi giving her a reassuring nod, Sophia clasping her hands in excitement. The music started, and for a brief second, her voice wavered. But then she closed her eyes and pictured her mother's face, the sound of waves crashing near her home, and the villagers cheering her on. She sang with a strength she didn't know she still had. Her voice rose like a flame, bright, warm, unstoppable. When she finished, the audience erupted. Heidi wiped a tear, Sophia clapped over her head, and Simon leaned forward with a proud smile, telling her, "You remind the world why we love this show." That moment restored her confidence, even if just a little. Just as she regained her rhythm, life delivered a blow she wasn't prepared for. Days before the semi-finals, she received a call that her mother had fallen ill. Althea's hands trembled as she listened, feeling completely helpless an ocean away. She begged for permission to fly home, but the doctors said her mother simply needed rest and would be okay. Still, the guilt crushed her. She felt like she was chasing a dream while her mother suffered alone. She told the show staff she wanted to withdraw, but late that night, her mother called her in a weak but steady voice. "Anik, listen to Mama. You sing. You keep going. Hard times don't stop us. Win or lose, you already made me proud." Those words wrapped around Althea like a warm blanket. She wiped her tears and promised she would stay. When semi-final night arrived, her heart felt heavier than ever. The stage lights seemed brighter, the audience larger, the pressure stronger. She chose a soft, emotional song that reminded her of home. As she sang, her voice carried a mix of pain and love, each note trembling with truth. When she finished, there was a long silence, the kind that meant the performance had touched something deep. Then applause exploded, louder than anything she had heard before. Even Simon looked shaken as he said, "That may be the most emotional performance of the season." But backstage, all Althea wanted was for her mother to get better. The world saw a star, she only felt like a daughter praying quietly for home. Finals night arrived with a mix of excitement, fear, and something Althea had never felt before, confidence. Not the loud, flashy kind, but a quiet strength built from every hardship she had survived. She stood backstage wearing a simple white dress donated by a fan who said she reminded her of her own daughter. The dress wasn't expensive, but it made Althea feel like she belonged on that stage. As she waited for her turn, she rubbed her shaking hands together, whispering small prayers. Around her, performers buzzed with energy, stylists rushed between rooms, and producers called out directions. But inside her heart, everything felt still. She remembered the nights singing on her rooftop, the rough wooden boards under her feet, the sounds of waves crashing in the distance. Those memories grounded her, reminding her that no matter how big the stage was, her voice came from a place no one else could touch. When the host finally announced her name, she stepped out into the spotlight, and the massive arena fell silent. The judges watched her closely, knowing this was the moment that could change her life forever. She chose a song many considered too difficult for someone her age, but she wanted to tell a story through it, a story of survival, love, and hope. The first notes were soft, delicate, almost like a whisper. As she sang, her voice grew warmer, fuller, filling the entire space with a gentle glow. Halfway through the song, she lifted her eyes to the camera and said softly, "For you, Mama," before reaching the most powerful part of the performance. Her voice soared, hitting the high note with a clarity that stunned everyone. The audience rose instantly, the applause echoing like thunder. Even Simon looked speechless, something rare and almost impossible. Online, Millions of viewers flooded comments with reactions within seconds, calling the performance one of the best ever seen on a talent show. Backstage, she felt her chest tighten with a mixture of joy and disbelief. She hadn't sung perfectly, but she had sung honestly. That was what mattered to her. The show ended with every performer hugging each other, but she stayed quiet, sitting alone for a moment to breathe. She whispered thank you to her mother, her village, and the strange twist of fate that had brought her here. The night passed in a blur of cameras, interviews, and flashing lights, but deep down she only wondered one thing: would her mother be proud? The next evening, the results show felt like walking into a storm without shelter. The lights were brighter, the audience louder, and the tension thicker than ever. Althea stood among the finalists, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear the host speak. When the top two names were announced, she heard her own and froze. She stepped forward in disbelief as the crowd screamed her name. Simon gave her a confident nod, as if he had known all along this moment was coming. She held her breath while the host opened the final envelope. Then it happened. Her name was called as the winner of America's Got Talent. The arena erupted. Confetti burst through the air, the judges stood applauding, and Althea fell to her knees, overwhelmed by emotion. She covered her face with her hands as tears streamed down, unable to believe that a girl from a small fishing village had just won one of the biggest talent competitions in the world. When the mic was placed in her hand, her voice shook as she said, "I did this for my mom, for my country, and for every kid who has nothing but a dream." The moment she returned home to the Philippines, the airport overflowed with people holding signs, cheering, crying, and singing her name. Her mother, still recovering but smiling brighter than ever, stood at the front, her arms open wide. Althea ran into her embrace, sobbing with relief. The prize money allowed her to rebuild their home, buy proper medication for her mother, and start a small music school for children who could never afford lessons. But more than that, she inspired an entire country. She proved that even someone with nothing, no money, no connections, no privileges, could rise to the world's biggest stage if they believed in their gift. Her journey did not end with the trophy. It began with it.